What happened to Mark Hamill's three children? The ones who grew up not on the dusty plains of Tatooine, but behind the real scenes, where the man who played Luke Skywalker set down his lightsaber and picked up lunchboxes, bedtime stories, and baby monitors. To the world, Mark Hamill is the reluctant hero who toppled an empire in a galaxy far, far away. But at home, long before CGI and Comic Cons, he was just a guy named Mark, a husband, a father, and eventually a dad to three very different children. And their journey, just like his, began not with destiny, but with timing. The story opens in 1978, a strange golden moment in Mark Hamill's life. He had just survived the blinding launch of Star Wars, A New Hope, a film nobody expected to matter. In interviews, he still sounded half stunned by the chaos of it all. But away from the flash bulbs and the George Lucas storyboards, something quieter was unfolding. That year, Mark married Marilu York, a dental hygienist from the Midwest who had no interest in the spotlight, but every instinct for holding the real world together. And the following summer, while the rest of the world was still quoting "Use the Force," the Hamills welcomed their first son, Nathan Elias. Nathan was born during the filming of The Empire Strikes Back. Mark was splitting his life between intergalactic wars on set and diaper duty at home, learning to juggle lightsabers by day and late-night feedings by night. He would joke later that Nathan's first word was Kenner, the name of the toy company printing Star Wars action figures by the millions. And it wasn't far from the truth. Nathan was raised in a house filled with plastic versions of his dad, stormtroopers on shelves, posters in hallways, movie premieres with his father's face 10 feet tall. But instead of chasing that spotlight, Nathan turned away from it. He grew up with a quiet defiance, not rebellious, just curious about different things. Where the world saw a Jedi, he saw his dad, a man who loved cartoons, monster movies, and comic books. That passion was passed down not through lectures, but through habits. Saturday mornings were for animation, evenings were for sketching, and soon Nathan was drawing his own creatures, wide-eyed, oddball characters with charm and shadow. His website would later call them cute to macabre, bashful to bellicose. They weren't lightsaber-wielding heroes. They were weird, funny, awkward, more The Simpsons than Star Wars. Nathan began working with Matt Groening at Bongo Comics, diving into the satirical worlds of Futurama and Simpsons-adjacent chaos. He co-created the comic strip Two Dumb Dinos and collaborated with Disney on quirky how-to-draw tutorials. And when he wasn't sketching, he was strumming. Nathan became part of the indie band Vacuum, recording music that was more synthwave than space opera. In 2023, when Vacuum finally pressed their first vinyl record, he posted it online, and Mark, proud as ever, re-shared it with a grin. "You better save one for me." For all his visual storytelling and indie pursuits, Nathan kept one foot in real life. He became a father in 2016, welcoming a daughter named Autumn with his then-partner Megan Chen. Mark, the man who once trained with Yoda, was suddenly training to be a grandpa. He posted Easter photos with his granddaughter, smiling not with Hollywood polish, but with the raw joy of a man who knows just how fast time travels. If Nathan had grown up watching his father fight galactic villains, now Mark was watching Nathan build a life out of art, music, and late-night bottle feeds. Their relationship, like everything in the Hamill household, wasn't about fame, it was about presence. Mark didn't push Nathan to carry the franchise torch. Instead, he showed up. He quoted Nathan's comics. He played bartender at his record release. He didn't try to make his son into a legend. He let him be weird, be quiet, be funny. And in doing so, he built a bond that doesn't need a spotlight. But Nathan wasn't the only one growing up in that home. Because in 1983, just as Return of the Jedi brought the original trilogy to a close, Mark and Marilu had their second son, Griffin Tobias Hamill. And if Nathan was the thoughtful artist in the corner, Griffin would become the balance between discipline and creativity, the quiet storm in the Hamill saga. His story is where we turn next. Griffin Tobias Hamill arrived just months before his father's Jedi robes were folded and packed away for good. It was 1983, and while Return of the Jedi closed the book on one of the most iconic trilogies in cinema history, life in the Hamill household was only getting more interesting. For Mark and Marilu, Griffin's birth marked a different kind of chapter. Not one full of red carpets and galactic empires, but of soccer cleats on hallway floors, refrigerator drawings, and scraped knees under California sunshine. Griffin was the quieter of the boys, introspective but steady, as if absorbing the rhythm of a house where everyone was always a little too creative to sit still for long. From an early age, Griffin seemed to split his identity between the visual and the physical. While his older brother was drawing offbeat monsters and playing synth lines in a garage, Griffin was busy mastering brushstrokes and roundhouse kicks. By his teenage years, he had become a dedicated martial artist, eventually earning a spot as both student and instructor at Mudu Integrated Martial Art in Santa Monica. The discipline grounded him, not as rebellion against his father's fame, but as an anchor, a reminder that self-worth could be measured in earned belts, not headlines. Mark, meanwhile, watched with admiration. In public, he often joked that he was the least athletic person in the family, a man who once slipped on stage at Comic-Con, now cheering on his son's precision and poise in the dojo. In private, he quietly attended Griffin's classes and later, exhibitions. He celebrated his son's milestones not with press releases, but with personal tributes. In 2019, on Griffin's birthday, Mark posted a photo and wrote, "Martial arts instructor, gifted painter, animal lover, loving son, and a true friend whose unconditional support means the world to me. Have a great one, kid. Love, Dad." It was simple, unpolished, real. But Griffin wasn't just kicking pads or coaching technique. He was also painting. His visual artwork, less cartoonish than Nathan's, leaned abstract, a blend of emotion and shadow, layered in brush textures that hinted at something unspoken. Though he rarely stepped into the public eye, Griffin joined his father at several events over the years, including stage rehearsals and even a small role in The Last Jedi in 2017, where he played Salaka Kuchimba. For a man so often out of the spotlight, that quiet cameo said more than a speaking line ever could. He was present, but never performative. Unlike many celebrity families fractured by expectation or ego, the Hamills stayed unified. Maybe it was Marilu's grounding presence, or maybe it was Mark's early decision to keep his children out of Hollywood's sharper edges. But whatever it was, it worked. And when Chelsea arrived in 1988, the final addition to their orbit, it became even more evident. Chelsea Elizabeth Hamill was born into a house where lightsabers sat in storage bins, and the family dog may or may not have chewed on a stormtrooper helmet. She was the baby of the family, the only girl, and the one who would eventually become her father's closest working partner. But early on, Chelsea was just the kid running around during Comic-Con prep, the toddler tucked in her father's arm on long flights, the child who learned to be comfortable around creatures, costumes, and camera flashes without ever being consumed by them. In fact, one of Chelsea's first unofficial roles came in 1990 when her photo appeared in the TV series The Flash, standing in as baby Axel Walker. But acting was never her ambition. What she wanted was to stay close, not to fame, but to family. As Mark's career entered a later phase, one filled with interviews, fan events, and increasingly personal connections with a global fan base, Chelsea stepped into the role of assistant and anchor. She organized travel, coordinated appearances, and, perhaps most importantly, reminded her father to drink water before panels and breathe during long signing sessions. She also became his companion at red carpets and press events, not to pose but to witness. At The Last Jedi European premiere in 2017, Chelsea walked beside Mark in a velvet gown, her arm linked through his, both smiling not for the cameras but for each other. In interviews, she spoke with quiet fondness about the surreal nature of sharing those moments with her dad. "As you get older," she said, "you start treasuring the times you get to spend with family." That night wasn't about Luke Skywalker returning to theaters. It was about Chelsea and Mark, walking through decades of memory stitched together by love, loss, and loyalty. One of the heaviest moments came during that same press tour. Carrie Fisher had died in late 2016, a devastating loss not just to Star Wars fans, but to the Hamills personally. For Chelsea, who had grown up watching Carrie and Mark's deep friendship, the grief was personal. She spoke of how the sequels, despite their controversies and chaos, had brought the cast and their families back together. A second chance at togetherness, just in time. Outside of work, Chelsea is a proud dog mom. Her Instagram is a blend of four-legged playdates, quiet snapshots of California skies, and the occasional Star Wars Easter egg. She once posted for National Pet Day with a photo of her two dogs captioned, "I thought National Pet Day was every day." It's the kind of humor her father would appreciate. Sincere, a little cheeky, and rooted in love. If Nathan is the eccentric artist and Griffin the quiet warrior, then Chelsea is the steady heartbeat, the one who never needed the spotlight because she already had her place at center stage, beside her dad. And so, while the world remembers Mark Hamill for saving the galaxy, his real legacy might just be in the way he raised three children who knew him first, not as Luke, but as dad. Loyal, imperfect, and always present. Over time, the galaxy Mark Hamill helped to build on screen began to orbit him in unexpected ways off screen. The conventions grew larger, the retrospectives longer, and the demand for nostalgia endless. But in the quiet corners of that whirlwind, between autographs, behind the velvet ropes, inside hotel elevators at 1 a.m., the same three faces kept appearing beside him. Nathan, Griffin, Chelsea, not just tagging along, but anchoring him. And if you watch closely enough, you'd notice something rare, a family not fractured by fame, but quietly woven together by it. Each of the Hamill children grew into entirely different lives. Nathan, with his band and comics, still walks the blurry line between playful irreverence and sincere craft, often sharing sketches of bulbous creatures or band rehearsals with just the right amount of irony. He's the kind of artist who grew up under the pop culture monolith of Star Wars and decided to make joy his medium. Joy for weird things, for oddball humor, for the kind of visual storytelling that never takes itself too seriously. And yet, he's also a father now. His daughter, Autumn, born on Halloween, has already brought the story full circle. A granddaughter raised in a world where her grandpa is a Jedi and her dad draws dinosaurs that talk about therapy. It's a strange, wonderful inheritance. Griffin, meanwhile, rarely posts, rarely speaks to the press, rarely wants attention. But every so often, he emerges in the background of a photo or in the credit list of a martial arts academy website. His journey was never about stepping into his father's shoes. It was about grounding his own path in discipline, stillness, and the quiet pride of teaching others. And every birthday, without fail, Mark will post about him. Animal lover, true friend, my support system, he once wrote. No hashtags, no filters. Just a father seeing his son, really seeing him, and wanting the world to know. And then there's Chelsea. If you've ever seen Mark Hamill at a Star Wars premiere in the last 10 years, odds are she was standing a few feet away, clipboard in one hand, keeping the chaos at bay. She doesn't speak loudly. She doesn't need to. Her strength is in presence, in being there, in being steady, in making her father's world not only functional, but meaningful. When Mark posted his Easter photo with Autumn, Chelsea was the one who had arranged the weekend. When the world mourned Carrie Fisher, she was the one reminding her dad to eat before interviews, to breathe, to keep moving. All three of them, different in style, in energy, in ambition, carry a piece of Mark's heart. And what's striking isn't that they turned out well, it's that they turned out whole. In an industry that so often breaks its own, that isolates and devours, Mark Hamill somehow raised three adults who still pick up the phone when he calls, who still sit next to him at premieres, who still come home for birthdays. This perhaps is the real arc. Not the hero's journey of Luke Skywalker, but the quieter one of a man who found a way to grow old with his family close by. A man who weathered the highs of box office fame and the lows of career droughts, who kept his marriage intact, who learned from his strict father and chose to raise his own kids with curiosity and gentleness. And in doing so, Mark Hamill gave us something more lasting than a character. He gave us an example. Because in the end, when the lights dim and the costumes go back in storage, when the fans go home and the quotes stop trending, what remains is the life you built behind the camera. For Mark Hamill, that life includes 3 children who never had to wonder if their dad was proud. They saw it, lived it, and still carry it with them every day. If you enjoyed this video and want more deep dives into the lives of famous families, please consider subscribing. Your support helps us bring these stories to light. Thanks for watching.